For God's sake, don't do this. Please. If you fear what the tribe will say, I will hide her.
Enough! You know the rules! Our tribe mocks the man who fathers girls. They call him weak, poor, cursed. Let's go! Forget her!
She is my daughter. Please let me save her.
Imagine a world without law. Imagine a world where the strong eat the weak, where a human life is cheaper than a handful of dates, and where a father can bury his own smiling daughter in the sand and feel no shame. This was not a nightmare. This was reality. The year is 570. The world is bleeding. From the palaces of Rome to the deserts of Arabia, humanity is drowning in darkness. It is a time historians call al-Jahiliyyah, the age of ignorance. But the darkest hour is always just before the dawn. To understand the light, we must first understand the darkness. This is the story of the world. Just moments before the birth of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Look at the map of the 6th century. Two superpowers held the world by the throat. To the west, the Byzantine Empire, the Romans. To the east, the Sassanid Empire, the Persians. For centuries, they fought like two giants wrestling in a glass house, crushing everything beneath them. They taxed their people into poverty. They treated common citizens like slaves. If you lived in these empires, you had two choices. You could pay everything you owned to the king, or you could die in his wars. Religion had become a tool for power. Christianity and Byzantium was fractured, filled with arguments and confusion. In Persia, the sacred fires burned, but the light of justice had gone out. Rulers claimed they were gods walking on earth. There was no justice. There was no mercy. The world was waiting for a change. But who would bring it? Not the Romans, not the Persians. The change would come from the one place nobody was looking at, a place everyone had forgotten, the Arabian Peninsula, a land of scorching heat and endless sand. There were no rivers here, no great government, no police, no king. The empires of the world ignored this place. They called it the land of wild beasts. Here, survival was the only law. The Arabs were tough. They were poets, warriors, and travelers who spoke a language of incredible beauty. But their society was broken. They lived in tribes, and the tribe was everything. If your tribe was strong, you were safe. If you had no tribe, you were as good as dead. They followed the law of al-Thar, or blood revenge. If a man from one tribe killed a camel belonging to another tribe, war would start. Not a war for a day or a week, but for 40 years. The War of Basu started over a simple camel, yet thousands died because of it. Generations were born into war, fought in war, and died in war, without even knowing why the fighting started in the first place. Human blood was spilled like water. They had courage, and they had honor, but they had no direction. In the city of Mecca stood the Kaaba, the house built by Prophet Ibrahim and his son Ismail for the worship of one God. But by the year 570, the message of Ibrahim was lost. 360 idols surrounded the holy house. There was an idol for travel, an idol for rain, and an idol for war. People traveled for months to reach Mecca, hoping these stones would help them. They would circle the Kaaba, sometimes naked, clapping and whistling, thinking this was worship. They knew of Allah, the supreme creator, but they said he is too high for us. They believed they needed these idols to talk to him. They created partners for God. They bowed to rocks. They carved with their own hands. If they were hungry, some would even make a god out of dates and then eat it. The connection with the heavens was broken. The Hanifs, a tiny group of people who still tried to follow the way of Abraham, were outcasts. They wandered the desert, crying out for the truth. But the silence was deafening. But the darkness was not just in their worship. It was in their hearts. The most terrifying aspect of this era was the treatment of women. In this society, a woman was not seen as a person. She was property. She could be inherited like a camel or a tent. When a man died, his son could inherit his stepmother's. But there was a practice even darker than this. Wadal Banat, female infanticide. To have a daughter was seen as a shame, a burden, and a weakness. If a man heard his wife gave birth to a girl, his face would turn dark with anger. He would hide from his people. And then he would make a choice to keep her in disgrace or to bury her in the dust. The Quran describes this moment with shaking power, and when the girl buried alive is asked, for what sin was she killed? There was no court to judge the father, no police to stop him. Her screams were swallowed by the desert sand. This was the moral depth to which humanity had fallen. The heart of the world had turned to stone. But just 50 days before the change came, an event happened that shook Arabia to its core. It was the year 570. Abraha, a powerful ruler from Yemen, grew jealous of Mecca. He built a massive cathedral of gold and marble. He wanted the Arabs to make pilgrimage to his church, not the Kaaba, but the Arabs refused. Furious, Abraha marched on Mecca. He brought an army unlike anything the Arabs had seen, and leading them was a beast of war, a massive elephant named Mahmud. The tribes of Arabia tried to stop him, but they were crushed. Abraha reached the outskirts of Mecca. The grandfather of the prophet, Abdul Muttalib, went to meet him. Abraha asked him if he wanted to save his holy house. Abdul Muttalib replied, I I am the lord of the camels, so I ask for my camels back. As for the house, it has a lord who will protect it. The Meccans fled to the mountains. They watched helplessly as the army approached the Kaaba to destroy it. But the elephant would not move. It knelt down. Soldiers whipped it, but it refused to move toward Mecca. And then the sky darkened, not with clouds, but with birds. Ababil, flocks of birds, carrying small stones of baked clay. They dropped the stones on the army. The Quran says they were made like eaten straw. The mightiest army of the time was destroyed, not by a superpower, but by birds sent by the Lord of the Kaaba. God had cleared the path. The false protectors were gone. The tyrants were broken. Mecca was saved, but the spiritual darkness remained. The year of the elephant passed. The world was exhausted. The Romans and Persians were tired of war. The Arabs were tired of blood feuds. The mothers were tired of weeping for their buried daughters. The soul of humanity was thirsty. It was a dry, cracked earth waiting for rain. Monotheism was a fading memory. Justice was a myth. The world needed more than a king. It needed more than a general. It needed a guide, a mercy, a light. In the house of a noble woman named Amina, a child was waiting to be born. His father, Abdullah, had passed away before his birth. He would be born an orphan. He would have no wealth, no army, no political power, but he carried a light that would outshine the sun. The darkness had reached its peak, and as the laws of nature tell us, after the darkest night, the sun must rise. On a Monday morning, in the month of Rabi' al-Awwal, Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, was born, and with his breath, the age of ignorance began to die, and the age of light began. But that is a story for another day. Life before the prophet was a lesson in how low humanity can fall. Without guidance, it teaches us that technology and power mean nothing. Without morality, it reminds us that even when the world seems completely lost, help is near. If you want to see how this orphan boy challenged the empires and changed history forever, subscribe to this channel. Until next time.